you again for doing this. I will not take hopefully much of your time,
It's
but
all
you
right.
never know.
That's all right. That's all right. I've got
I'll
the whole day booked out. It's fine.
All right. So, Dr. Alok, why don't you tell us something about yourself? Where are you from? Your education background,
Yeah.
and why did you choose to become a doctor?
Okay, good. That's a good question. So initially, I'm from India. As I said, I was born and brought up in Bangalore. I did my schooling there until I was 13, and then I moved to the UK. My mom and my granddad, great granddad, all ophthalmologists and eye doctors. So I've always been around medicine and especially eyes. I remember when I was about 7 years old, 8 years old, after school, I used to go to granddad's clinic and sit in the room whilst he was examining patients. And for me, the most important thing was to get onto the chair because it would go up and down, back and front as a 7 year old, and he'd test my eyes. But prior to that, when I was a bit younger, because he used to keep testing my eyes, we realized I was colorblind. And I
Mm,
went, oh, okay. And that then started coming into fruition in certain lessons like geography or whatever. You color the tree the wrong way around, you color the bark green and the leaves brown. And the teacher
yeah.
thinks, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
My granddad checked and he was like, yeah, you're colorblind indeed. So I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, just kind of being around that with, granddad and mom, watching them work, always having to kind of, listen to medical talk at the dinner table, whatever it was. To then coming to the UK, I did my GCSEs and A levels in a small town called Dorchester. It's in Dorset, it's in the southwest of England. Coming from
Mm-hmm.
Bangalore to Dorset was a big cultural shock.
Yeah. Yeah.
From an old boys' school, Bishop Cotton's, to coming to a
Oh,
co-education school.
okay. Bishop Cotton, is this in the one in Shimla or?
No, this is the one in Bangalore.
Oh, the other two branches I was not aware of.
Yeah, no. So the one in Bangalore, and
Oh,
then coming to a co-ed school with very different and yeah, so then started doing my GCSEs, A levels, integrated into the system here, um, and then decided, okay, I wanted to do medicine. And what really made me decide that was two things. One was my love for science, which is always a very generic, simple kind of answer. But the second thing was volunteering. That really helped me because at the time there was an initiative called tackling loneliness in the elderly, and that was quite prevalent, and it still is in the UK.
mm-hmm.
And what we used to do is every week on a Sunday, I used to go and spend some time with an elderly lady who had no family around her, and just spend an hour with her. What was meant to be a 6 month kind of volunteering stint turned out to be 3 years, where I would take her when I started learning how to drive. I would take her out for a drive, or I would go get her groceries for her, and then we'd essentially meet every Sunday, and just talk about different experiences. She was Caucasian white British lady, but she has been brought up in India, in Shimla, and or in the mountains somewhere. And I was like, this is what
Oh,
a
wow.
connection, This is
Yeah.
not what we knew before, and we formed a bond that really helped. And I thought, when you can make simple differences to someone's life by just showing up for 1 hour, and helping, doing something so insignificant in your life to help someone, that's a good feeling because a positive reinforcement of that. Um, you know, I was discouraged to do medicine from my family because they were like, don't do it just because we've done it, and that was never my
Yeah.
goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at other options. I looked at business. I looked at um, you know, banking, all those other things. So I made sure I did things the right way in terms of the grades, the subjects I did, like chemistry things, so that other doors would open for me as well.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, no, I'm going to go and do medicine because this is something I think I would enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, and then applied into medicine, was very competitive in the UK. I wanted to go to a particular university that I didn't get the spot in. So I said, okay. And I didn't want to go to one of the other unis that had offered me a spot, which I didn't really want. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, let me look at other options. What can I do elsewhere? This is my first kind of big hurdle in life. Yes, I've got the grades, I've got everything I need to do, but I've not got through.
Yeah.
Something's not right, but I know I can do it. So the next thing was to look abroad. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there are courses run in Europe that are recognized by the General Medical Council. They provide education in the same kind of method that I was taught in India, which I preferred, which is the orthodox method. So you do your preclinical and then your clinical years. And I thought,
Right.
actually, this would suit me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try. So applied, interviewed, entrance exams, and I ended up going to Hungary. That was, I think, to date, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. One, because you're on an international program,
Mm-hmm.
you're taught in English.
Yeah.
You have people from around the world in your course.
Mm-hmm.
You're networking and you're communicating with people from different cultures, different backgrounds around the world.
Yeah.
That combined with your medical education, picking up another language, living in a different culture, in Europe, traveling around Europe because it's so easy to do so from Hungary, and also then realizing that the pound goes a long way when you're living in a European country that isn't in the euro, in as in isn't using the euro as their currency. So
Yeah.
living costs were cheaper, um, tuition was the same, but your quality of life compared to your medical student quality of life in the UK was significantly better there because of the space you had or whatever else it could be. So it all played factors into the decision making.
Right.
Went there, 6-year course. You come out with a Doctor of Medicine degree, and your
Mm-hmm.
final year is a placement year or a practical year completely. So you can choose
Mm-hmm.
that anywhere you want. And also after every year, you have a placement in the summertime. And I always did my summer placements in India to get again another aspect of a different healthcare system. But also for me, it was selfish because I could come and see family.
Yeah.
Um, so I went to the Apollo hospitals in Bangalore for 1 year to do a surgery rotation. I went to another hospital to do an emergency medicine rotation for 1 month. But then it showed me a different healthcare system and how India works in terms of a
Mm-hmm.
private and a government hospital.
Yeah.
Um, Gave me more experience, more connections. And then my final year, I decided I need to do it in the UK because if I
Mm-hmm.
want to come back and work in the UK, you have to understand the system. So I did 6 months of that at Imperial College. Did a few different rotations there. Did a couple of rotations in Leicester, and then did a rotation in Cambridge as well. So then got the opportunity to go to the universities that I had wanted to,
Yeah.
uh, and that was excellent for preparing me for my role as a junior doctor in England.
Mm-hmm.
Practically,
Yeah.
theoretically, medicine is the same, but practically, that was what helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And then applied for my job after graduating, got my job in the UK. I always wanted to be in the southwest of the country because it's the warmest part. It's got the
Mm-hmm.
sea, it's got the fields and the greenery. So that's where I am.
Yeah.
And then you have to do 2 years as a junior doctor in
Mm-hmm.
different rotations, which is kind of like your internship in India.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have to do 4 month rotation. So after every 4 months, they put you into a different specialty. So you get
Okay.
a good breadth of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 2 years, you have the choice of what you want to do in terms of post graduation or specialty medicine. And
Yeah.
again, that will then depend on however long the course is. So I chose to do. I always wanted to, go back into ophthalmology because one, family connections, but two, also I understood it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a job in it as a junior doctor. One of the rotations was ophthalmology,
Yeah.
and I absolutely loved it. And I thought to myself, you know, this is incredible. And then in your after your 2 years, what now majority of junior doctors do is they take a year out. It's called the
Mm-hmm.
F3 year. So F1 and F2 is your internship years. The F3 year is a choice that you take as a junior doctor because you've just been continuously studying. You've got 2 years of work. People usually want a break. And what they do traditionally is most people would work for 6 months and then travel for 6 months. So
Mm-hmm.
people go to Australia for work, or some people decide to kind of do more on their portfolio and things like that to help their CV to build up a competitive application for their specialty. So for me, I mentioned business earlier. I'm always kind of business minded. So I thought, why don't I take control of my timetable and do something called as a locum job, where I can choose and pick up shifts as and when I require.
Yeah.
Pay is usually a little bit better. So I took an F3 year, I took a year out. And then that's the time when I worked 4 or 5 different jobs just to see what was available for me outside of medicine and inside of medicine,
Mm-hmm.
but not in the hospital setting.
Okay.
That's when I found Medic Mentor, started working for them 2 years ago. It's exactly 2 years, 3 days ago. So found them in the private education sector, started developing or innovating courses, learning how to market, learning how to, create processes to help
Yeah.
business basically, create, innovate, and deliver a product,
Mm-hmm.
which has helped me significantly. Combine that with marketing for me as a person with international experience to then help with the international summer school and other things that we're doing is the right
Yeah.
kind of fit.
Yeah.
And then decided, okay, after a year out, after finding different things that I did, I decided, okay, I'll go back into training. I'll do my postgraduate training. But I've always wanted to do something with sport. In Hungary, in England, I played basketball at a high level, and I continued that in Hungary. And therefore thought, okay, let me combine sport and medicine together. The only way for me to do that is, one, do a sports and exercise medicine master's, and
Mm-hmm.
two, at the same time, do general practice or become a GP with a
Mm-hmm.
special interest in sports and exercise medicine. And to do that, I was quite lucky. One of the people, I worked at the Commonwealth Games.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Birmingham in 2022. So the role was a venue medical manager, which is a non-clinical role. And it was more a managerial business acumen kind of role where I'm providing and delivering the medical services. And that was an eye-opening experience for me because I had 70 people under me as a team, delivering services to 30,000 people in the crowd, athletes,
Wow.
and everyone else. So that was a huge, undertaking. And that's when I realized, okay, if I want to continue down this road or even do management stuff, the business side from Medic Mentor will help me with my experience. The sports medicine side will help me with the clinical, and the general practice side will give me the basis and the foundation of what I want to do. And then from there on, I can choose to do whatever I would like. My
Yeah.
end,
So
yeah.
it looks like you found your calling so far.
So far, yeah, so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's
that's where
great.
that's where I'm at.
But yeah, but so like you said, you went to Hungary and then you came to the UK. But how was life at the university? I'm sure, like you mentioned, you must have experienced culture shock. I want to know, as an international student, what were some of the challenges that you thought you really faced, and what are actually the right ways to overcome those? Who can
Yeah,
we reach out to? What can we do to help ourselves?
yeah, that's a great question. So I think my initial, not fear, but my initial thought process was, how am I going to fit in? One, I've already moved country once. I'm moving
Yeah.
country again. I don't know the language. The first time I'm going to Hungary is the first time I'm going there, and I'm going to go live there.
Hmm.
But then I realized all my peers are in the same boat.
Yeah.
So you start forming these bonds with your classmates, which helps. But then you also want to integrate into the society. And the one way to do that is respect their values and learn the language.
Yeah.
So I took Hungarian lessons very seriously. A lot of international students, I think, take that for granted and say, oh, I don't want to learn another language. But
Mm.
learning the language opened up so many relationships. So a prime example, and to this day, is there was an elderly couple that lived opposite the apartment that I had. um, because one, just being respectful, not throwing, parties, this, that, whatever else, but then being able to communicate with them in Hungarian,
Yeah,
opened up they were more welcoming, I would say,
absolutely.
which then led to a beautiful relationship to the point where they had my key. If I came home for winter for the Christmas break, when I went back to Hungary for exams in January, there was food in the fridge. The heating was turned on, and
Yeah,
there was all the basic things which your neighbor would otherwise. You don't get that as much in the UK. Big
yeah.
cultural difference. Hungary, I found, was about 20 years behind Western Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more of a simple life, but it's something that I enjoyed because it reminded me of a little bit of, let me say, example wise, of India. When the street vendors come down with fresh fruit and vegetable, we go and get them.
Yeah,
That doesn't exist in the UK. Everything is prepackaged in supermarkets, and you're picking it up, and all of that. Whereas in Hungary, again, you had that open market feel. You had, you know, you go, you pick the fresh fruit and veg, you come, you make. There's no pre-pack, there's no all those simple things like that in terms of food, in terms of the welcoming nature of your neighbor. Things like that were very different.
yeah,
So I felt very safe in Hungary, um, as there was no real um, exposure or any negative comments in the 6 years that I was there in terms of skin tone, race, nothing like that. People
mm-hmm.
were people were welcoming as long as you realized you could speak the language and you made an effort.
Yeah.
People were very
Makes an
happy.
impact.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's something that even in India, it's we do realize it from time to time when we go to another state.
mm.
It just automatically, when if you are familiar with the language to some extent, there's just more, the blending in becomes easier. People
Easier.
do become
Yeah.
more welcoming. So that's for sure. So what according to you would be like the top compelling reasons to study in the UK or to study medicine, abroad, for you?
So in the UK, you've got world recognized universities.
Yeah.
You have placements in hospitals that you will then be working in potentially.
Hmm.
So your exposure to clinical practice combined with your clinical theoretical knowledge is
Yeah.
excellent. The teaching styles here in the UK are brilliant because different universities cater to different teaching methods. So every student has an opportunity to learn in the way they prefer in the UK. That is a very strong kind of selling point there. The second thing is, once you study and you graduate from the UK, it opens up doors to Canada, Australia, New Zealand as well. That is another, excellent opportunity. So, for example, for people from India, the Indian population in the UK is a significant number.
Yeah.
15% of doctors in the UK are of Indian origin, which is a
Hmm.
huge, huge number.
Yeah.
And that's all there. But then a lot of doctors also then go to Australia, come back and get that experience. And if you study in the UK, there's no extra exams you got to do.
Hmm.
And that's the difference there. So for me, studying in the UK would have been something I would have wished I could have done.
Yeah.
But it's a great opportunity. The students that I meet, the courses that they're doing in terms of some of their electives that they're doing are extremely forward thinking in terms of health technology, health, other things like that, which are now up and coming, not even up and coming.
Yeah.
They are here and they're here to stay.
Yeah.
Um, Coding, artificial intelligence, whatever it might be, incorporating that into medicine and giving these students that opportunity in courses is a huge deal. So I think
Yeah.
more and more universities are starting to do that, and that should be looked at as an exciting opportunity for students.
Yeah, absolutely. I think no career path can be unidimensional anymore. It has to be a combination of just so many things. You can't work in isolation.
No,
Everything has to be put together, and
yeah.
that gives you a perspective. So when a student is planning a rigorous program such as medicine, what do you think is the role of a mentor? be it a college guidance mentor or a subject specific mentor? How
Yeah.
can we help?
So one is truly knowing the process of the application journey, and two, encouraging the student to realize that it's not a 1 year or it's not a 6 month application that you can just do quickly. Medicine in itself is a different field compared to most, jobs that you're going to be applying for or courses that you're going to apply for.
Mm.
And preparation is key over a longer duration of time. So, what we recommend is, 3 years. A mentor has to be able to, one, motivate, two, kind of keep positive reinforcement going through, but also to also be true to the mentee and say, if this is something that you're not very sure of, then consider it and reconsider what your choices are.
Yeah.
It's better to realize now than 6 years down the line, and X amount of tuition paid, and then you realize I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
so I think, one, the mentor has to be completely thorough with the application process in the UK. Two, they should be engaging but also realistic with the student. And three is starting the process early.
Yeah, I think very rightly put, definitely. And like you said, there are so many times when students realize that, you know what, I can't do this.
Yeah.
During applying, they realize that this is just crazy. If
Mm.
I can't do it now, how will I thrive, you
Yeah.
know, later on? And I think that realization, and to identify that and to be able to address it in an effective manner is important, definitely.
And actually, it's a good thing, because then they realize early, they, one, they will remain happy in their choice.
Yeah.
Um, Forget the time, forget the money. They will just remain happier, and they will have inner peace if you realize, because if you're forced into doing something you don't want to do, you're never going to be happy wherever you go, whether it's the UK or wherever your dream destination is. You're never going to be happy if you're going to do something you don't want to do for
Yeah.
6 years of studying to get to the next stage. So I think, 5 or 6 years. So I think, yeah, that really helps.
Absolutely. So, Doctor, how are these 5 to 6 years planned at the university? Like you said, there's an internship year. I'm sure there are certain foundation courses. So, what's the trajectory like?
Yeah, so there are foundation courses if don't have the grades and you meet certain criteria in terms of family income and things like that. But as an international student, it's quite competitive to get into university in the UK, but it's
Yeah,
doable. It's very doable because there's allocated spots per university for international students, as you know.
yeah,
Um, the the thing is, you have to pick a choose. What we do is we help you pick and choose the university strategically. That's
hmm,
the main key. One is understanding you. So if, as a mentor, I have to understand how you learn best as my mentee. I look at all your grades, your UCAT score, BMAT score, everything else, and then I say, look, the likelihood of you getting into, say, Cambridge is not going to happen this year, but it doesn't matter where you study medicine. At the end of the day, medicine is taught the same. Medicine is the same, and
yeah,
it might be taught in, a problem-based learning versus an orthodox method of learning. Which one would you prefer? Do you want to work in a team, and do you want to go system by system, or do you want to go and then have patient interaction in the first year, or do you want to sit and read a textbook for the first 2 to 3 years and then go and meet your patients after? And
yeah,
then students realize, actually it's not so important that, oh, I have to go to Cambridge. They realize, I could go to any other university anywhere, get the same degree. At the end of the day, I'm a doctor. And I think the importance is that, no, when you apply for jobs after, no one looks as to where you studied. That is just not even looked at anymore. It's more about your, the skills that you've shown, your interview, and things like that. So I think from that perspective, if you're looking to study in the UK, it's a great opportunity and time to do so. But also, you have to identify certain things within yourself. How do you learn best? Where would you like to go? And which is the most strategic application that you can send in?
yeah, absolutely. So, would you consider rankings as an important, do rankings have a part to play, especially when you're applying for medicine in the UK?
Rankings as in university rankings?
University rankings, yeah, because some students are obsessed with the rankings, as you would know.
That's right. And I think that's, again, see, now that's a cultural thing, because I can say that because I was in India. As from an
Mhm.
early age, we were given ranks in class, we were given ranks in school, and
Yeah,
every student was, fighting to get that top three ranks in the, whether it's in your class or your entire standard.
that's
And
true.
I remember that. And I'm not sure if it's still the same, but I presume it might be. Um, that system has to leave. It's not so easy to leave, but that system, just because someone is ranked number two, number three, or number 10 in the world, or whatever it might be, doesn't mean that they're going to produce better doctors or provide an education that is actually better.
Yeah,
Um, Look at the Charles University in Prague, and compare that to, say, Plymouth University in England. They're both run by, Charles University of Prague is run by an Englishman who is an English doctor, and so is Plymouth. So the system is the same. They're teaching the same way. Prague is employing different ways of teaching that are using the British techniques. So why is Prague ranked, say, 100 and Plymouth ranked 400? Examples, just, random numbers at
yeah,
you. It makes
yeah,
no difference. It depends what you get out of the course and what you put into the reading, is what matters.
yeah.
Whether
I
you're
think it
doing,
will.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry, but like you said, it's a cultural thing, and it'll take years of unlearning.
mm,
And I think that also happens when you step out of your comfort zone and you move to another place. You meet new people, and that's when you realize that, oh no, I was wrong.
yeah,
This just not matter.
no, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So, when students come to me and say, I want to go here, my first question is why.
Hmm.
And you can usually tell when a student hasn't really thought about it, um, or you could tell when a student has. They'll say, for example, it's got good transport links to back home. It's got a community that I want to be around. It
Yeah.
has, this and this at the university, which provides me with, these opportunities. And you think, okay, the student has done their work. Whereas other students, when you can realize, is just, oh, I want to go to a university in London because it's London.
Hmm.
And you think, right. Okay. We're going to have to sit and have a chat and, an
Yeah.
honest conversation.
Hmm. All right. Yeah. No, makes complete sense, and I think it takes time, but they all get there. It, of course, but it takes. And that's when I think a role of a mentor is so important, because you need someone to break those biases for you and
Yeah.
to just help you navigate those conversations.
Yeah.
So for an international student, let's say who's coming from India, an ISC or a CBSE student, what will be our main subject requirements to pursue veterinary medicine in the UK? Will I
Veterinary
need,
medicine.
yeah, will I need a PCB, or does it have to be PCMB, or just physics or biology is what's main? I mean, bio or maths.
So for veterinary medicine, I can find out and ask for you because I don't have the exact answer. So I don't want to say something I don't know.
Yeah,
But
sure.
for medicine in general, you
Hmm.
can, it's usually chemistry, biology, are the two main kind of core subjects. And the third
Okay.
subject that usually people look at when you're doing equivalent is something like psychology or business or something different.
Yeah.
Um, if you're looking at Europe, as an option, and it's not England, for example, say a student has applied into the UK, but unfortunately not got a spot, but then the opportunity of Europe opens up, then
Yeah.
having maths or physics is always a good idea as well.
Okay. All right.
For the UK, I would say chemistry, biology are the two big subjects to have for medicine. For
Okay.
veterinary medicine, I can find out and get.
Okay. Surely. Surely. And so what careers can one pursue with a degree in medicine? Because
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure not everybody wants to just be a doctor per se.
Mm-hmm.
Are there some other anything else that the students can look into as their options, career paths?
Yes. How much time have you got? so,
Oh, yeah, no.
uh, uh, this is
Yeah.
a more and more prevalent question now. As you said, not every job now is one-dimensional anymore. Gone
Yeah.
are the days where I'm just a doctor in the hospital and that's it. Um, yes, there are some people that still do that because that the world needs that. But there are a lot of people that also now look at other
Mm-hmm.
options.
Yeah.
So medicine opens the door into multiple fields.
Yeah.
Having chemistry opens the door into investment banking or banking in general. Okay, so that's one. Going into pharma tech or
Yeah.
big pharma can open up doors as well. So usually they look for people who have completed some form of um, undergraduate training at least, and then at least some form of specialty training. So you don't have to complete your specialty training sometimes, but it'd be better to.
Yeah.
Um, People look at business acumen very highly. So you can go into healthcare management,
Mm-hmm.
you can go into healthcare leadership, and then run hospitals.
Yeah.
Um, that's a huge thing as well. And then the other thing that this is just coming off the top of my head because these are the things that I'm looking at myself. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so you talk about pharma, you talk about healthcare management, healthcare technology. A lot of people are going into health tech. That
Yeah.
is a new but also very here to stay um, field.
Yeah.
And you've got new fields coming up like sports and exercise medicine, which have been there since, right, say 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
That's only a short
Absolutely.
amount of time. Um, but then you can go into the sporting world from that. You
Yeah.
can, lead, for example, say FIFA or IPL. You could be the medical director for IPL
Mm-hmm.
because they need a medical provision.
Absolutely.
And if they don't have one, which I'm sure they do, because when they were in Dubai, they used a particular company to provide all their medical services, then you could provide or plan the medical services for the IPL.
Yeah.
And being a doctor and having that management experience there is perfect.
Yeah. So like you
So,
said, there is just so much, and there's a world of possibilities for anybody who's, delving into this field. Um, what is it that you enjoy most about your profession? And is there anything you like least about your role?
um, so the most that's difficult. So, I think the formation of the bond with the patient. So hospital medicine is different compared to general practice. So
Mm-hmm.
general practice, you sometimes get to see the patient over and over again because you're their general practitioner. Yeah. Whereas in hospital medicine, you form a bond there and there, and then that patient moves on, and then you kind of
Yeah.
get the next one coming through. I think it's the privilege of being able to see people at their most vulnerable state because that's their true personality, that's their true self, and being able to help them in that state is always a thing that I cherish.
Yeah.
And I would say thing I like least sometimes is the fact that maybe the system can do with an upgrade in the UK.
Yeah.
Yes, there are things going on at the moment in the UK in terms of junior doctors and everything else. Um, but the general vibe of the system can do a little bit of an upgrade. I think it's not anything to do with patient contact. It's not the colleagues. It's nothing like that. I think it's more a system thing, which they are trying to sort out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And my next question is actually for all the young aspiring medical students. According to you, what are the most essential skills or qualities um, that a doctor must have?
Okay. Um, Let me phrase it to you in this way. A lot of people come and say, we ask the question, what makes you a top 10 candidate? And a lot of people say hardworking, motivated, volunteering, all the grades, all of the above. But
Hmm.
everybody has that.
Yeah.
Everyone is hardworking, not just the top 10%, not just the people who have the grades. Everyone's got the grades. It's something that we call the growth mindset. And an example of that is, say, for example, one of our awards program criteria is leadership. Demonstrate leadership in an activity or something that you've done. And a lot of people come to us and say, we don't know what to do for this. and we just nudge them a little and say, has your school got a, medical school or a medical, community or a, medical society? No, they haven't. So why don't you create one? That's the growth mindset. That's when the
Mhm.
student realizes it for themselves and says, actually, and then a few months later, they'll come back and say, actually, look, I've created the medical society. I got a teacher on board. We have 3 people. We meet once a week and we have conversations. And the teacher has documented all of this. So we got a certificate. And I was like, what more leadership do you want than that? So I think the growth mindset is something that we teach and we hope. And that's why our students, usually get 4 offers or, you know, 3 or 4 offers from their universities and can pick and choose where they go.
Yeah,
That's the difference. So
yeah.
I'd say having the curiosity for knowledge, growth mindset, and being able to dedicate the time effectively.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's because universities are just not looking at your grades. Like you said, most of them have great grades. They have great personal statements to share. They have great letters of recommendation. But what really stands you out is
Yeah.
something that has to be reflected on. I was actually working with this student last year on her veterinary application, and I realized, of course, she didn't make it to any. And um, there were a couple of things I realized. Of course, like you said, international students, it's of course it's competitive out there. The process is
Mhm.
rigorous, but what else does the selection process entail? The work experience, let's say, do universities in the UK consider work experience of something that the student is doing here? Let's say, if I'm interning with a doctor, would that really count, or would they want to look at something which is at par, something which is
So,
more strong?
good question. So, if you look at the Medical Schools Council, nowhere does it say that work experience is actually compulsory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And actually, it is frowned upon if you do work experience as a UK student going abroad and doing your work experience is frowned upon. They
Mm-hmm.
so what they usually say is the two scored components are volunteering and application knowledge and ability to show that you can independent living, basically. So doing a residential program like the summer school or the
Mm-hmm.
Edinburgh, things like that.
Yeah.
Work experience will be beneficial for the students if it's work experience that's done in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Following a doctor in India and going and learning about certain things can help. Yes, it'll help your motivation and whatever else, but it's not going to be counted in the UK. I
Mm-hmm.
actually would leave it off the application.
Yeah.
What I would do then is, yes, I'm going to shamelessly plug our work experience here because we've got a virtual work experience
Yeah.
where the student can join in the comfort of their own home. It's a pre-recorded session that we did because of COVID, which now over 30,000 students have attended. Um, it's
Wow.
six,
It's a
it's
big
a
number.
six, yeah, it's a 6 month program. It's one
Mm-hmm.
session a month. Okay. And it's in a different specialty every month. So if it could be emergency medicine one month, could be obstetrics gynecology the next month. Then we went and filmed a live surgery, a kidney transplant the next month. And
Mm-hmm.
that gives them more of an opportunity because there's discussion in those sessions with the doctor, but also with our doctors, explaining what every step of the process is. So that I would say is, especially for students in India, would be more valuable because one, you can sit and do it any virtually. Two, it's free to sign up for. Three, you have your own time to do it, and you have 1 month to do each thing, so you can sit and do it whenever you want. And four, you actually get an experience of the NHS system and
That's
how those
lovely.
steps work. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that, let's say, a student has a great UCAT score in addition to your summer program where he's getting to understand, a bit of everything, would that really, like a couple of these things along with his grades, of course, would that make the applicant a strong one?
So I'd say you need a little bit more than that. So yes, your UCAT score can be strong.
Mm.
Also depends on your SJT banding or your situational judgment banding, which is part of the UCAT now. Two is your personal statement. So if they come to summer school, the personal statement will be strong because there's so personal statements usually are misconstrued to be demonstrations of academic ability and prizes won, when actually it should be reflection on the learning of what you've done through your experiences. A prime example I'll never forget is one of our students 2 years ago was a swimmer for Great Britain at a high level. And all they wanted to do was to include that sentence. I won this many at this competition, etc., etc., etc. Brilliant. Okay, you can do that, but it's not going to add any extra point to your score,
Mm.
to your
Yeah.
application. Compared to someone who plays badminton once a week on a Friday, but then says, because of my dedication to go every Friday, my ability to time block, or my ability to go and pursue it and work as a team with two players doubles badminton, that is that reflection, and then connecting it to,
Yeah.
when I saw the doctor working in a team setting and this is why that sport is going to make me better as a student and as a medical applicant. That person is going to get more marks than the person who's said, I've been an Olympic swimmer or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
combine the reflection of your personal statement with a high UCAT score, with all your, awards and publications that we can offer with Medic Mentor, like writing for the journal,
Hmm.
writing for the magazine, things like that. You stand out. Or, the most important thing is showing leadership, medical leadership program. When they book onto summer school, they get automatically enrolled into that. I'm not sure if Senya's mentioned it, but
Yeah.
yeah, and it's, projects that are with like-minded individuals that you get an opportunity to then present, maybe locally, nationally, wherever. And some of our students have presented posters nationally already, and they're not even in medical school yet. And
Yeah.
these are things that junior doctors sometimes struggle to do in the first year. Whereas if you have that already, then you're so much more ahead of
Yeah.
the competition.
Absolutely. And like you said, I think it's always good to start early. When is the best time to actually start? Because a lot of people find, of course, it's an aptitude, a skill, it's something that you might or might not discover early on.
Yeah.
So is grade 10th, let's say, in India, a little late for anybody to start prepping for this
Grade 10
journey?
is 16 years old, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'd say when you're 14, 15 is a good time to start.
Hmm.
I would say between the ages of 14 and 15 is a good time just to start, just to, say, actually, I'm inclined, I like science. I'm not going to make a strong decision that this is exactly what I want to do. But
Yeah.
I would say, the first thing I would do is one, come to a conference, a free one, like a Get
Hmm.
Into Medicine conference. That's the first thing I'd do. Um, the second thing I do is come to an Insight into Medicine conference, which
Hmm.
is run every alternate week with different doctors every time, speaking about their different journeys. Just like how you've now interviewed me about my journey, then you'll have different doctors talking about their journey into their specific specialty. And every week that rotates, every alternate week that rotates. The third thing I do then is sign up for the awards program. That's a
Hmm.
£50 admin fee, one-off fee, but it's a CV builder. And what it does, what we've done is we've taken all the prospectuses of the unis and all the scoring points that they
Hmm.
recommend, and we've
Yeah.
created one massive curriculum, which should last for 3 years. You've got your bronze level, your silver, and your gold, kind of like the Duke of Edinburgh, one stage at a time. It doesn't matter if they're 16 and they start at gold; they can do it retrospectively as well. Okay.
Hmm.
And it's all cumulative. So for example, if you know attend one conference, you get your bronze award. If you attend two conferences, you get your silver award for that particular specific criteria. And then
Yeah.
leadership, teamwork, all those criteria come under that.
Yeah.
So that what the student is doing is they're not realizing, but they're already diversifying their application, and they're already writing their personal statement because they're bringing the material for their personal statement through the CV builder. So when they come to year 10, when they're 16, and they say, oh my God, I've not done X amount of work, or I've not done this, I don't have this. We say, actually, look back at your awards program, and you will see that you have done all of this. And this is what you need to write about in your personal statement, because that's what's going to get you in.
Yeah.
And the best way to do all of this is for the student to sign up via the portal. So on the website, there's a student portal. If they sign up, it's free to sign up. They get all the links for the conferences and everything else. And the last thing on there, which is a good one, is already talked about, is the work experience, which is free.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they get access to something called Medical Society, Virtual Medical Society, which is every Tuesday, a 1 hour or 2 hour session on a different topic. And there's usually a doctor there, so they can speak to doctors. And and it just keeps helping. So the two, I'll focus on this because on the UCAS form, when you look at this, why we say start early and speak to doctors and do all of this, and why we have doctors available, is there's two parts to the form. One form is the teacher-facing side, with the teacher reference and everything else, which we write for them, and that sometimes the teacher literally just says, yes, we'll copy and paste that, or they'll make slight changes. The second is the student-facing form. And on the
Yes.
student-facing form, you've got where you put your personal statement and everything else and your demographics, but you've also got your ability to show independence. So universities don't want students that have not shown their ability to live alone, independence, because they're a high risk of dropout. And the second one is volunteering. But if you have all of these things there early, your UCAS would just be a breeze to fill in. So that's why we suggest doing it early and signing up for the portal, going to these conferences, going to as many of the Insight conferences as possible, doing all of this early, and then it builds up everything such that you're not struggling in the final summer or the application summer. Because when your application summer comes along, you're stressed, you've got your exams, you've got, imagine if you've not done your work experience there, you then have to do your work experience, you've got your exams, you've got to write your personal statement, you've got summer school, and then I'm sure someone is getting married, so you've got the marriage to go to. And that's where the application falls apart.
Yeah.
That's when you have to sit the UCAT, BMAT, all of that comes together. And then if you also then add in, oh, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, you haven't shown this, you haven't shown that, a good student who would normally get in falls there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you've just put it very beautifully together, and this is what happens in a lot of cases. There's just too much pressure in the end, and that's where the student tends to give up because they know that now nothing can happen.
No.
Yeah, great. I think this brings me to my last question, and we're, I think, right in time. But what does a typical day in the life of Dr. Alok look like?
Good question. So I'm usually up quite early, just to give myself a little bit of time in the morning for myself to kind of process what the day is going to be and what I need to do. I get to work for, say, 7:40, 7:45. I start seeing patients at 8, and we finish it around 6:30 sometimes. This is a GP practice, so as a GP, as a trainee GP, I do that. I come home, I spend some time with my partner, we have some dinner, but then I might have to do some master's work. I might have to, I might have a swimming class, so I go swimming, or I might go play basketball. There's, different things there. And then on the weekends, we're a bit more relaxed because I try and get all my work done in the week. And then I kind of try and relax in the weekends if it's by the water or anything else, just to go along for a few nice kind of walks by the sea.
Yeah, all right. Just sounds great. And I think I have got so much clarity
Good.
today about the entire process, and definitely, I think let's see what comes out of this. I'm actually there are a lot of thoughts in my mind right now, but maybe
Yeah.
I'll keep those. I'll definitely direct some questions to you eventually.
Sure.
I think, but thank you so much again
No
for
worries.
doing this. This has been great. Hopefully, we'll reconnect again.
Anything else you want to know about Medic Mentor or us as chief mentors here, then
Yes,
we can do that.
definitely. All right. Thank you so much.